Hey there guys, welcome to today's live stream. So again, I am doing it a little bit early today. It's been a little chaotic with everything, so I've just been deciding to do these earlier. So sort of anticipate in the future that maybe I will do the live streams earlier. I'll probably schedule this next one probably for 10 next week instead of 12. So just keep that in mind. I apologize again, guys. It's just with everything kind of going on here, I'm become unsure on when to start, and I don't want to be distracted too much. And I want to be able to focus and sort of concentrate on sort of going through these topics with you guys. So that's why I'm doing it early. All of these again are recorded. Every live stream I have is recorded, and it's usually posted right after it is done streaming. And I usually post them to YouTube as well. So definitely keep that in mind. I do want to mention that yesterday I had an Instagram live stream and I mentioned the 14-day free trial, which is coming up on March 6th. So you can join that and be a part of my online fitness program, sort of see how that works, see how it's structured, sort of get to know a little bit more about the program without having to, without having to be fully committed into it, I guess you would say. So again, you can sign up for that. If you want to sign up, please just contact me or message me and let me know that you want to be a part of the program, be a part of the trial. All I'll need is your name and your email, and I'll be able to set up your workouts. And then once March 6th arrives, then you'll be able to have access to those workouts and get started. So I did want to mention that beforehand. And that's pretty much all I wanted to discuss before I get started with today's topic. So basically what we're talking about today is the difference between strength machines and free weights. So I'm going to sort of discuss various different pros and cons as it relates to these two basically exercise modalities, I guess you would say. So the first thing I'm going to start sort of going through the list here of what I'm going to discuss today is understanding your limits when it comes to weightlifting and using strength and free weights, strength machines and free weights, understanding the basics of strength machines, pros and cons of strength machines, pros and cons of free weights, and the basics of free weights. So that's basically sort of to sum up what I'm going to be discussing today. So understanding your limitations. So when it comes to starting any workout routine, especially when deciding the proper modality to use, it's important to be aware of your limits and start at where you feel comfortable, and then challenge yourself from that point on. So with any type of exercise that you do, whether it be strength training, or not just strength training, but whether it be strength machines, or you're using free weights, or using any other modality, whether it be cables, kettlebells, medicine balls, anything of that sort, you always want to make sure that you sort of know your limitations and be aware of what you can handle, because sort of not get an ego when it comes to lifting weights. Do what you can handle. Never compromise your form over function. Always use caution when training on unstable surfaces, whether you're using something like a stability ball, if you're using a BOSU ball, which does challenge your stability, anything like that. Always be aware of, if you're combining sort of those exercises with free weights. For example, a BOSU ball, I've used it with, using dumbbells. And you sort of need to know your limitations. Start light when you're doing anything like that. If you're doing something stability, definitely start light. And then recognize limitations of fitness apps. So if you're using a fitness app, sort of recognize that not all fitness trackers are 100% accurate. That's something to keep in mind, and that it can lead to miscalculations. So never compromise form over function. Always use caution when training on unstable surface, and then recognize your limitations as it relates to fitness apps. So I wanted to mention that before I get into what I'm going to discuss. So strength machines. So the basics of strength machines. Strength machines are primarily known as a selectorized machine that are often accompanied by diagrams and pictures and are often great for beginners. So when you think of a strength machine, it's likely anything like you see the bicep preacher curl machine. Basically, the machines that have a particular function that they do. It's limited to one specific function. So you've got shoulder presses, you've got um, the butterfly for the chest, anything like that. Strength machines are primarily just a particular machine that does a specific sort of action to target a specific muscle. And that's basically sort of to sum up what a strength machine is. Um, Free weights. The difference between strength machines and free weights. So the basics of free weights. Free weights are simply dumbbells, barbells, or any weight that is not attached to a machine and allows for free range of motion. All of these types of weights can help with enhancing motor learning and improves muscular coordination and performance. So basically, to sort of understand the difference between the two, is when it comes to strength machines, they are basically sort of in a stationary position. It's doing one specific action, targeting one specific muscle. With free weights, you are in a free range of motion. You're able to move in different areas. You're not sort of in a stationary position like you would be in a strength machine. So you're going to be using, it's going to be more, training with free weights is a little bit more intermediate than when it comes to training with strength machines. So that's something to keep in mind. And there's going to be pros and cons to both. So free weights do have the pro that they're going to enhance, your coordination, your performance, things of that nature. And that's what I'm going to discuss a little bit more here. So the pros of free weights. So free weights can improve athletic performance. They can challenge the core stabilization system. A lot of that is because when it comes to free weights, you have free range of motion, but you're also trying to stabilize a muscle that is not attached to a machine. You have to stabilize that muscle with your hand. So that is the difference when it comes to that. Free weights may also improve dynamic joint stabilization and proprioception. Again, that goes with the same thing that I just mentioned. You're having to stabilize that weight when you're using free weights. And it allows for movement in all planes of motion. So again, free weights, you have no limitations to how you can move. So again, you have that free range of motion and you're able to target specific muscles in different ways than you would a strength machine. So the cons of free weights. They may require the use of a spotter. If you're using really heavy weights, you do need to have a spotter to sort of be able to assist you. It may offer more of a challenge to beginner lifters until exercise technique is mastered. So again, if you're beginning to weightlift, it may not be best to start with free weights. I used to be, whenever I started sort of getting into the gym and getting a little bit serious about working out, free weights used to scare me. I used to just, there's something about dumbbells I just didn't like when I first started. And then I understand that you need to have it in order to progress through, weight training. But again, when you start out, you don't have to start with dumbbells. You just, you want to start with the strength machines, which I'll discuss a little bit more. So again, this is going to be more challenge. It is going to probably offer more of a challenge to a beginner lifter until their exercise technique is mastered. Requires multiple dumbbells or barbells to change intensity, so you're constantly having to go back and forth. And it is potentially more dangerous, so you can injure yourself. It can be pretty easy to injure yourself with these, so you have to be cautious of how you use them. One thing that I do want to mention that I've injured myself a couple times with, of course, the more you weightlift, the more you learn, your form, the more you sort of are aware of what you're doing. But one thing is with the barbell. So the barbell, of course, is separate from the dumbbell. So the dumbbell is just the individual free weights, and the barbell is the bar that has the plates on the end. So with the barbell, one thing I want to mention is deadlifts. Deadlifts is one of the things that, if you don't do it properly, I just want to mention this because I've had so so many times and so much experience with it that it's something that you need to be aware of. If you are using barbells, you need to be aware of your form. You really need to be aware of your form when it comes to barbells, just like dumbbells. Um, but when you're doing anything like a deadlift or a squat, you need to be aware of your form. You need to make sure that your shoulder width apart with your feet. You need to make sure that when you're squatting or when you're going down, that you're doing it in a stable position. You're going straight down over your second and third toe when you are squatting. Deadlifts, of course, you're bending your back, so it's something to keep in mind. Is the deadlift can hurt your back if you are not doing it properly, and I've had it happen multiple times with me. Even though I've not sort of noticed it on set, like at the moment that it happens, later I do notice it, and it's because I did something wrong, or maybe turned a certain way. So, even though you may have exercised for a certain amount of time, you may be more comfortable with it as maybe you're doing it for a couple months or you've been doing it for a year. You still need to constantly be aware of what you're doing when you're using free weights. Definitely with free weights, you need to be aware of what you're doing, because I've injured myself multiple times with them. And again, it's kind of a part of the process. There are times where you just kind of aren't really thinking, and you'll injure yourself. So again, the way to sort of mitigate that and to lower that chance is to be aware of what you're doing. You have to be aware, especially if you're using any type of this equipment, because you can injure yourself. And I just want to mention that because I've injured myself multiple times with barbell. So the barbell can sometimes be dangerous. So definitely be aware of that. And I don't want to scare you, but I've injured myself so many times with it, and usually I recover pretty quick from it. But it really does not feel good when you injure yourself, especially your back. My lower back, I've injured it before, and it doesn't feel good. And then my wrist, I've injured my wrist with a barbell. So most of my injuries has come from a barbell. Dumbbell, I've not really had any kind of injury, but I just want to mention that because I know we're talking about the cons of free weights, and I have a lot of experience when it comes with, some of the cons of free weights. And I don't want to scare you, but I just want to mention that it is very important to be aware of what you're doing. So going back to the pros, or going back to strength training machines, or the pros of strength training machines. So strength training machines may be considered less intimidating. They can emphasize certain muscle groups for rehabilitation as well as bodybuilding purposes. Various intensities and loads can be provided in one simple weight stack. It does not require a spotter and provides extra support for individuals with special needs. So again, these are easy. Everything with a strength training machine is pretty self-explanatory. Again, like I mentioned at the beginning, it usually shows a picture or diagram on how to perform the specific exercise. Sometimes on strength training machines, you can actually, if you have your phone, you can scan like a QR code and it'll sort of show a video on how you do that machine, how you perform the action on that machine. So again, especially if you're starting out, I would recommend starting with strength training machines. And again, each machine does a specific action and it targets a specific muscle. And your intensities and loads can be changed on the fly. So again, like with strength training machines, you usually have you have that weight stack, and then you have your pins, which you can change what intensity of weight that you want. This does not require a spotter at all. And a lot of strength training machines usually have more support. You're more stationary, in a stationary position, and usually you are less likely to injure yourself from them. So the cons of strength training machines. So many machines will not allow a user to do total body exercise. So one thing to keep in mind with strength training machines is they are not built really to be for a free range of motion. They are more of a stationary position focusing on one specific muscle or muscle group. Movement is primarily done in one plane of motion. Like with any strength training machine, you are going to be in one plane of motion doing one particular action. It does little to provide challenge to the core area. So I mentioned a little bit about the core yesterday when I was on the Instagram live stream. The core is one thing that you should train. It's important to train it. Um, Again, if, say for example, if you don't want to go into doing free weights or to do, core free weights, you can do, body weight sort of exercises. Body weight exercises are great for the core area. So if you're just uncomfortable with doing free weights, or you don't want to do core exercises with free weights or anything of that nature, just do body weight core exercises and then move on to strength training machines, and sort of you'll be able to get that core area targeted. You're doing body weight and then moving on to strength training machines. But you just want to start with what you're comfortable with and don't overexert yourself with any sort of machine that you're using. So that's something. The core area is important to train. So again, strength training machines do not really provide that challenge for the core area, and it may not be ideal for improving overall athletic performance. Uh, and machines often do not fit all body types. So these are some of the things to keep in mind. Strength training machines are primarily focused for beginners, but even if you're, more aware of, weightlifting, then you can still use strength training machines for certain functions. I mean, they are great for almost anything. They just don't provide as much of a challenge as with free weights. Alrighty, so that's basically all I have to discuss with you guys today. I just wanted to sort of discuss a little bit of the pros and cons between sort of strength training and then strength training machines and then free weights, because there's certain different things that you need to keep in mind with both. But again, to basically sum it up, is free weights you want to focus on, if you're more intermediate, if you're more advanced, free weights are where you need to go. Again, it's going to provide more range of motion. You're going to be able to target the muscles that you want specifically with free weights versus strength training machines. So that's something to keep in mind. And free weights can be dangerous, like I mentioned. Be aware of your form when you're using them, and start with a weight that you're comfortable with. Don't try to lift too heavy, or don't try to have an ego with it. Just start with what you're comfortable with and then go from there. And like I've mentioned in the past, progressive overload. Gradually raise your weight as you're getting comfortable with it and challenge yourself. Strength training machines, again, this is for beginners, anybody that's starting to weightlift, anybody that's just new or novice to weightlifting. It's definitely where you want to start. Each machine usually has a picture or diagram and explains what that machine does. And another thing is, for example, some of these machines I want to mention again. You've got the butterfly, like the chest butterfly. You've got sort of shoulder presses. You've got bicep curls that are usually in these machines. You've got leg curls. You've got the leg extension, back extension. Any sort of strength training machine is going to have those specific actions that they do. So again, that's something to keep in mind. These are for beginners. They're going to keep you in one stationary position and in one range of motion. So just wanted to sum all that up and give you guys an idea of the difference between these two and where you should start if you are actually weight training, or you're trying to challenge yourself more into doing more intermediate or more advanced exercises. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Again, I apologize about the times on these live streams. It's been all over the place. And I want to do these when I'm not distracted and I can focus and I can talk about the topic at hand and not be distracted with anything else. And usually in the morning, it's kind of quiet, so it's usually why I'm trying to do these at this time. But again, likely I'll probably next week and maybe early in the morning again, kind of like today. But again, I always have these recorded regardless. I will put them on YouTube and they will stay here on Facebook in the Facebook group. You can comment. You can watch these again whenever you want to, and just put even if the stream's been up for a while, just put a comment if you have a question and you just watched it. Even if you're not watching it live, you can watch it anytime. So you can always contact me too. I've got my phone and my email here. If you have questions about anything I discuss, anything discussed today, previous live stream, anything that's been discussed on my Instagram live stream, anything that I've talked about, you can ask me, and I'll try to reach out to you and get back to you as I can. But with all that being said, guys, that's pretty much all I have. I will have another stream coming up. I am working on the presentation for that one, and I will be able to share that pretty soon. So it'll be again next Wednesday. I'm not familiar or not for sure on the time when it'll be when I'll do the stream. So keep that in mind that it may not be at noon at the same time. So, but I'll definitely try to let you guys know in advance as much as I can. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next stream.